Hey guys, Gideon here. Today is going to be fun as I'm sitting down to chat with Church, the leader of the Federation, which is one of, if not the largest guilds aside from the actual pirates currently playing Ashes of Creation. So thanks for agreeing to sit down and chat for a bit
Yeah,
today.
man.
I have some questions I wanted to go over uh, about what it's like leading a guild, the game, and a few other things. So yeah, let's
Sure.
get into it. So, one thing I'm curious about, what's the first game that really had an impact on you and got you into gaming to begin with?
Yeah, I mean a lot. Um, I think computer gaming specifically was EverQuest, right? It was the first like kind of social MMORPG, right? It was the big deal in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think that was the first big one that kind of got me hooked on playing with other people online, right?
Very cool. Anything else, or was that kind of the main one
That was the
that
big
made you
one. I
hooked?
played a lot of CS Source and Team Fortress and stuff too. Some shooters back then when I was a young buck, but yeah,
Heck yeah,
mostly
man.
mostly EverQuest. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I missed that boat. I was playing a lot of the CS Source and TF2 and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
yeah, that's really cool. So specifically with Ashes, you've got a pretty good leadership crew that it seems like you've been playing with for at least some time. What kind of drew you guys as a group into wanting to jump in and test Ashes of Creation?
Right. So, um, yeah, I would say most of our leadership crew I've known for a very long time. Um, we've played a lot of games together, Arc, Atlas, New World, a bunch of titles together. But one thing we don't shy away from in Fed is promoting people. So we actually have people that just joined us in Alpha One that are currently in our leadership core. So
That's super
uh,
cool.
yeah, I think sometimes people shy away from promoting people and newer people, but in Fed we like to innovate, right? We like new vision. We like to hear people's input, and so I think initially for us it was kind of the scale of the game. We think it's going to be massive, and Steven's vision and the devs' vision of how they want to do things. I think it was phenomenal. So we bought in pretty early, the kind of core group of people in Fed leadership, and that's where we started.
Very cool. Yeah, that it's interesting. I was aware of the game for a while. I don't know if it was at the Kickstarter time or not, but I've been following it like kind of from afar.
Right,
But yeah, as you know, I didn't jump in until uh, Alpha 2
right,
with
right.
you guys. So yeah, that's really cool. It's always interesting to know like what kind of drew people to the game. So I've personally been in, a number of guilds of different sizes and commitment levels over the years in different games, from World of Warcraft or, a bunch of other stuff. And one thing I've noticed is, depending on the size of the group or, if they're more hardcore or more casual, leadership styles, tend to be different or, the success or failure of those groups, depending on their size and what they're willing to take on, tends to be different. What's it like leading a group or a guild this large? And maybe along with that, like what's your guiding philosophy or approach on leading a group like this?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's challenging, right? And you have to live it. That's for sure. A group this size, it's rewarding, right? There's a lot of things that you get to see come to fruition that not a lot of people on the planet do, right? But it's also challenging. It comes with a lot of time and discord simulating, as my leadership core likes to put it. And I think, you know, our kind of guiding philosophies in Fed have always been pretty communal and hoping that we can produce content for everyone, right? Not just the kind of sweaties that killer PvPers, but also, your average weekly players, right? And ultimately not take ourselves too seriously, right? And I think too often people turn pixels into this hyper toxic place, and we try to stay somewhere in the realm of chill, right? So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Very, very cool. I remember when I was looking for a place to play, paraphrasing here, obviously, because it was a while ago, but you said, hey, you want to come hang out with a big group of chill adults and kill some pixels? So, I mean,
Right.
that's,
Yeah, that's what we try to do.
that's awesome. So kind of, you know, playing off of that question a little bit, I've actually never seen a mix of hardcore and casual players at this scale actually work. You can, you know, infer what you what you want from what work
Right.
means, but what
Right.
what what makes Federation different, or what makes, you know, what makes you guys
It's
successful
top
at that
down,
balance?
man. It's top down. I think if your leadership core is set up to where you focus solely on the sweaty, hardcore players, you're going to tend to recruit more players like that. You're going to tend to have a certain type of human being, right? And that's okay, right? You can have that in a guild and still have the other side too. But I think ultimately, and I tell everybody this, I'm sure you've heard me say it in our meetings and the world has heard me say it, but just because you click pixels better than somebody doesn't mean that you're a better person, right? Um, and so I
True,
think
true.
if you push that kind of top down, it matters, right? And of course, there's going to be individuals, right? There's always individuals, and sometimes you're going to get a bad rep because of a certain thing that happened or a certain person did this.
Yeah,
But
of course.
overarching, if you push that as a whole, I think it matters, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. What well, and I'll just add, personally, I appreciate the fact that it works because I jokingly refer to myself as a casual tryhard. You know, when I
Right.
play, like
Right.
I'm trying to relive the glory days of being in my 20s and having nothing better to
Right.
do and like going
Right.
hard. But then it's like, oh man, I got a lot of responsibilities too. So
I'm the same
it's
way. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
Fed Opal is our kind of PvP core, as you know, but I call
yep,
myself Opal adjacent. That's what I tell the boys because, of
nice,
course, I love shot calling and going and doing that type of stuff. But also, I have a daughter and a wife, and I'm pushing 40, right? I'm not a young 20-year-old anymore, and I think that old man syndrome kind of permeates through Fed, right? It's not we're not a
yeah.
young bunch of people. I think it's definitely a much older gaming community than a lot of the toxicity you see, right? So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I gathered as well. So, um, maybe a kind of like a two-parter spinning off that a little bit. Like, what's your favorite thing about running a guild, and what's your least favorite thing about running a guild?
Well, I know the least favorite instantly, and I think it's drama, right? I don't think
Yeah,
there's any question that with as many people as Fed has and has had over the years and the core group, I mean, I think it's foolish and naive to think that everyone's going to love each other, right? So
right, right.
we try to keep it as chill as we can, and our leadership are told and weekly that they're mediators first, right? Their secondary jobs, whatever it is, PvP, PvE, crafting, admin, politics, whatever it happens to be, that's a secondary job. Your first job is to mediate and diffuse situations, right? So we keep a pretty good handle on it. I think there's obviously, like I said, there's those ones, right? Everyone has some in their guild that just can't, just it's nonstop. But definitely that's the bad part. Um, my favorite thing about running a guild is that's a good question. I think probably just the camaraderie, right? The DMs you get from people saying that was the funnest I've had in forever. Good job doing this, whatever the case is. I think leadership in any organization is kind of a thankless job, right?
Sure.
Um, but the positive stuff you do get is fun. It's good. I think that's what makes it all worth it, right?
Very cool. Yeah. All right. So I wanted to pivot just a little bit and wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about some of the, Ashes of Creation specific stuff. Like one thing that comes to mind is AOC being a social sandbox. There's inevitably politics involved. You were even mentioning like, hey, it's impossible even within a large org with a common vision. Not everyone's always going to get along. So, with all the politics that come into, a bunch of groups of people interacting in a game like this, how do you think the current systems in the game, or even lack of systems or incomplete systems, impact this? And what changes, if any, are you hoping to see, in the months and maybe even years to
Right.
come?
Yeah, I think an interesting aspect with Ashes is, like you said, a social sandbox, right? Where you kind of make your own way and a social interactions kind of dictate how you do things. And I think that's super cool and it attracts a lot of people. And currently in Alpha, it's hard because you don't have all the systems, like you had mentioned, in place that could potentially help with some of that stuff, right? So currently, there's no alliance system, right? There will be
Mm-hmm.
eventually and such. But um, I foresee this game being a lot like some of the other large scale political type sims. So, for instance, Eve Online or
Mm-hmm.
Arc, or any of those games where you see kind of alliances and whitelist form in certain areas of the map that kind of fight and jock for influence and position for other areas of the map. And this is our territory, this is your territory type thing. So I think it's
Sure.
cool. I think you got to put people in positions to, be able to speak for Fed and make good, you know, uh, good choices. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of sort it out through alpha and beta. And we've tried to stay as much out of politics as we can in an alpha state just to have as much content as we
Yeah.
can. But I think it's inevitable down the road, right? That there'll be alliances and whitelist and
Yeah.
kind of this super large scale coordination, not just from a guild perspective, but from an alliance perspective. So you'll have vassal nodes and metropolises and different artisan skills and all this that you can't even imagine, right? It's just,
Yeah.
it'll be insane. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. If all goes to Steven's plan, it could be pretty wild. So,
No doubt. No doubt.
with Fed being a large and notable guild, I'm sure you see plenty of challenges from other groups, other players. Like so far, I mean, once again, like you said, it's an alpha. Like, how has this played out in Node Wars, or even in other ways? Do you think kind of these challenges, and skirmishes and things like that, have they been a positive experience? And then and maybe a little bit kind of keying in on some of the Node War stuff without giving away any of the church secret sauce. What's it like shot calling, in some of these big events or big conflicts, where
Right.
people
Yeah.
war deck on you guys or vice versa? So kind of a multi-part question there, but kind of curious to hear your take.
Yeah, I mean, performance aside, because I think there's some stuff coming down the chute that will fix some of that stuff, the dynamic server meshing and all the stuff that
Yeah.
we're to be seeing in phase three and betas. Node Wars have been a blast. I mean, it helps when you're 7-1 or whatever we are currently, but and that's
Heck
not
yeah,
to
man.
sound cocky whatsoever, but winning is more fun than losing in general, right?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I do think the wars themselves are really cool. You're literally fighting in the world that you play in 24/7. It's not some instance like area. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
You're walking into your city and defending it, or going into somebody else's city. So pretty cool. It's nerve wracking to shot call something like that. I want to give a quick shout out to our PvP leadership core. I think they do a really good job. I shot call some when I'm online, depending on the situation, right? But we have people in place where we have a couple really good shot callers, and kind of our columns are segmented, where we have people split up into different groups and such. But ultimately, one person is shot calling, and there's some secondary callers that help with kill targets or flanks or whatever the case is. And So it's good. It's something that you kind of build on, right? People when they first join Fed and they get into this sweaty PvP core, they don't know what they don't know, right?
Right.
So it takes time, and you learn those kind of calm disciplines and stuff that are so important. Um, but I think Node Wars in the spot they're at currently have been super fun, and uh, so we'll keep doing that and hopefully keep getting a bunch of content from it. So, and I heard someone say it yesterday. I think it was Thor that said it on Pirate Software. He said, uh, "This is the worst they'll ever be." Right? It's Alpha 2, and
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think it's just going to get better. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I'll wait for any like biased interviewer comments, but obviously it's not a secret that I'm in Fed as well, and I got to experience my first like major node war, fighting against actual pirates and being in the main raid and stuff like that. So it was a cool experience. Things were chaotic. There was constant movement and counterplay, and I was you know I was impressed at the comms discipline and how you guys like made calls and stuck to them and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I did, even though I'm a more casual player, my nerdery goes pretty deep. I was getting ready for the next day, and I was listening to Pirates, like VOD, just to hear like his side
Oh
of how
yeah,
he was
the
perceiving
opposite
it.
side. Oh, we do the same
Yeah,
thing. Absolutely.
absolutely. And
Yeah, I
I
think
heard the same thing that that you called out too. Like, yeah, this is fun, but it's the worst it's gonna be. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah. I did you have any thoughts on like you know hearing the opposite side of something like that? I didn't mean to
Yeah,
cut you
I
off there,
think
but
one kind of overarching thing was the performance. Obviously, the draw distance is kind of small now, so you can't see
yeah,
these clumps sometimes. And one thing that we have in Fed that specifically against pirates, they're a massive organization, and
yeah,
um, so it, communication from the top to the bottom takes a while to get down.
mm-hmm.
So we took advantage of that, and basically we would go bait them into one area. They split their forces as well,
Yeah,
which kind of played into our hand as well. Not to give them any tips, believe me, I don't think
yeah,
they need it.
yeah. We
But
can edit that out, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I think hit and run, and they obviously had numbers on us. They had over three raids there, so we were. It was a surprise deck during the day, and it's just one of those things where I put it together as quick as I could and tried to kind of muster people, and ended up coming back and getting the W. But yeah, I think from his perspective, it was cool. He, of course, is on the flying mount, right? So he can kind of fly around and see stuff. And
Yeah.
uh, intelligence in a war, in this game, especially in a node versus node war like this,
Mm-hmm.
is everything. So we had scouts, they had scouts. So we kind of knew where they were. I think our scouting was probably better. And I think that's what ended up winning us the war, honestly. So it was good.
Sure.
It was a lot of fun. It was they were actually really good sports about it too. I felt good about that. So yeah, exciting
Yeah,
stuff.
I thought so too. It was good to see all the kind of positive vibes at the end, and
GG's, good
see.
fights, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, hey, good segue. Once sieges are available, is all hell gonna break loose, or is the server going back to the Stone
yeah,
Age, or
yeah.
do you think it's gonna be kind of like the we all have nukes, so no one uses the nukes?
Mutually assured destruction.
That's right. That's right.
um, yeah, no, I think it's going back to Stone Age. Yeah, I would like to think it isn't. No disrespect to anybody. I don't have any personal issues with anybody. Um, I think I think on Vira, I'll give you an example. On
Hmm.
Vira, um, they are pretty far behind in benches, just getting journeyman benches up, right? Because there was some overlap where some guild mayors didn't want to do a certain thing, so they did something else, and there was not a whole
Okay.
lot of coordination. Luckily, on Lineth, we are much better with that.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you that you're dealing with a bunch of hyper masculine egos on a pixel environment, right? And
Yeah.
uh, ultimately, I think if you got everyone in Discord for 10 minutes, most of them would probably be cool with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, that'll never happen, right? So
Right.
hopefully that's
Right.
not the case, but I foresee it being pretty ugly for sure. Yeah,
Hey, I mean, that should be a lot of fun too, though, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I let's test. It's an alpha, right? Test the
Yeah.
systems. Who
Yeah.
cares? If we take it back to the Stone Age, well, we'll be in the Stone Age for about a month, and I'll see you guys in phase three, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. It'll be a lot of fun.
That's cool. Um, so one thing I noticed is usually leaders of guilds, the guilds, or I should say, like any of the nodes where a guild has control and they have a mayor. As far as I've seen, it's usually the guild leader that is the mayor. I noticed you're not the
Right.
mayor of Winstead. Why is that?
Um, I don't need to be honestly. I think it's fine for guild leaders to be mayors, but it's a big time sink. I
Mm-hmm.
think if you want to do it well, you have to be non-combatant and want to help out citizens and coordinate with other mayors, like I was saying, right? And in our case specifically, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the best in the room at doing that.
Okay.
So our mayor, Kyle, plays, I've known him for a decade. He led an Albion, a big Albion alliance for years with the
Oh
Fed
wow.
branch.
Okay.
He is as chill as they come. He's not very non-abrasive. I could be a little abrasive sometimes. So it just works out that he plays more than me. It just makes sense, right? I don't need it.
Okay.
I don't need my flowers for that. He does a much better job than I would for sure. So that's the reason. It's really just common sense to me. I don't think there's
Okay.
anything else. Maybe one day I'll be a mayor, man. I'll strive to be the
Okay.
best mayor the planet has ever seen. But for now,
Say
he's
what
doing a
that
marvelous
flying
job.
mount though, man. Can't believe you gave that up.
Very clutch. Very clutch. Yeah. Yeah. But I think Kyle is really good about using it for the
Yeah.
good of the guild, right?
That's
So
that's cool, man.
he'll scout for us. He'll run materials for people. He'll go gather materials for people because he can do it more efficient than most people, right? So, um, yeah, very good choice of mayor, and I don't think we'll primary him anytime soon. I think he'll stay there for a while.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, what's your biggest worry for Ashes of Creation? And it's like take that in any direction you want. I know it's a very generic
So
question.
I think this is easy. I think being that the developers and Steven specifically have this massive vision for this game,
Mm-hmm.
I think they could find themselves in the business of over promising.
Mm.
And they got to be careful because what the way that they do development is risky. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very open development,
Yeah.
and I love it. I think it's so cool to be able to literally
Same here, man.
to see this live stream every week a month, have the ability to play, shape the game, as I talked about in our meeting,
Yep.
and then for Steven to get on and be streaming personally, and yeah, Fed comes and helps him test the boss, right? I just think it's the coolest thing.
It's super
Um,
cool.
but my worry is that everything he says is taken as the word of God. And if he
Yeah.
misspeaks one thing, the whole internet's going to turn on him, and he's going to be in an Asmongold video or whatever the case is, right?
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Which I'll
I
probably
just think,
watch immediately.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, right. And it's a lot easier to be negative Nancy on the internet these days.
Yeah.
So I worry about that for him and for the game because I think it's in great hands. Their team is phenomenal so far. So hopefully it keeps
Agreed.
going the way it's going.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think part of that is, like Steven's so excited because it's his vision and he
Yeah,
wants all the things, all the features. And like
he
you
wants the
said,
world to know. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's awesome too. But hopefully, like, the team there and any of us players that are really into it keep reminding people, hey, you know, it's an alpha, right? These
Right.
things will come.
Right.
Yeah. So, I guess conversely, what are you most excited for in Ashes in like any of the upcoming phases? Once again, take that in any direction you want to.
Right. So Fed does everything, right? We're kind of
Mm-hmm.
casual to hardcore. We on my recruiting post, I generally put hardcore but chill, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
we do
Hey, it
have a
worked
lot
on
of
me.
hardcore people, but there are a ton of people. I think, we forget that, there's there's 400 people that aren't Fed Opal, right? That aren't PvP sweaties and Fed currently, right? So
Right.
I think the big things that are coming like soon, like in alpha,
Mm-hmm.
are the new archetypes Rogue and Summoner. I cannot
Yeah,
wait for Summoner. I think Rogue is out on PTR today. Um,
very cool.
New sieges, obviously we haven't seen in Alpha 2 yet, which will be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the currently the node war system is just a kind of race to 800 kills, and they're going to add some more stuff to that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that, of course, because I like to get in there and get my hands dirty.
Yep.
And I think the next thing is the node development, the vassling, kind of the next level of nodes. When we get to level 4, we'll open up more
Mm-hmm.
ability to get journeyman and higher stations at more nodes. So it gives us more options, um, which I think will be good for everyone, not just the sweat lords.
Yeah, yeah. I think that'll be really cool. Um, one thing I'm curious about, and actually, I think I caught a conversation about this at the tail end of when I was listening to the opposite side of the Node War and hearing Thor or Pirate Software talking about it, was someone was saying that if you end up being a vassal node,
Mm-hmm.
you can't like go against your.
That's what I heard.
And
Yeah,
he's
he was
like,
talking about
"What?
a
No
peasant
peasant uprising?"
uprising.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So you heard
yeah,
that too, and I'm like, "That's
yeah.
interesting." I wouldn't have even thought about that. Like that could be interesting feedback.
Oh, super cool. Yeah,
For Steven, even. Yeah.
I think the reason they don't want that to happen is because I mean, inter node politics will be really cool for vassal nodes and stuff too. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that would be cool. Honestly, I would love to see that if I was not
Uh
saying
huh.
we will be, but if I was a metropolis and the level
Mm-hmm.
5 node next to me wanted to uprise and kind of attack me to take over that spot. I think that would be really cool,
Yeah.
but it would also throw a huge wrench into the dynamics of the area, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
very cool.
That could be very interesting. Um, if I know Steven is famous for granting wishes in game, but maybe broader scope. If if you got a magical Steven wish for anything that you wanted Ashes related, what would it be? Maybe that's a tough
Oh
one, but
man,
unless you're
yeah.
like, nope, I got it.
I mean, maybe it's obvious because I run a larger org.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just the fully flushed out guild system, right? I think right now they're uh kind of they didn't have it planned until phase 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so we initially thought we weren't going to get any guild changes in phase 2, but they adjusted fire on that, which I think was smart. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
guilds are the cornerstone of a game, right? It's community, right?
Yes.
It's literally a social sandbox. So, um, yeah, I think a fully fleshed out guild system is huge. I would love to see kind of an interface and some options for the guild events, whatever it is in game, where we could
Sure.
maybe consolidate a little bit because dealing with 9 or 10 guilds is obviously a pain for me personally. That's just
Yeah.
selfishly me saying I want to make life easier on myself. But
Hey,
yeah, I
it's
think
valid though.
I think that would be it. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and like 7 flying mounts would be good too, Steven. Thanks, man. Great. Thanks. If you could
Nice.
just mail
Nice.
that over to me.
Yeah, the guild stuff is actually a really good segue into some questions that I kind of crowdsourced a little bit too. So maybe pivot here
Oh, God.
and take a look at take a look at some of those questions. So you already touched on it with that last one a little bit, but what do you think of the current guild leveling system? I know that you've given some feedback on the forums already, and some of us have kind of gone and taken a look at your post and chimed in ourselves. Is there anything that you want to speak to on the current system and
Sure.
maybe changes that you're looking for?
Yeah, I so let me preface this by saying I run a large organization. So obviously I think, things that make my job easier are fun for me, right? That's great.
Yeah.
But I think the current way the guild leveling system is implemented uh, disproportionately affects small guilds negatively.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. Um, First of all, the amount of experience needed to level
Mm-hmm.
is astronomical. Now, they didn't change that. They did change, however, which was a very positive change after some feedback from all of us, the cost of guild commodities to level a guild. They actually
Yeah.
reduced it by
Yeah.
about 75%. Very good step.
Yeah. That's huge.
So props to them, right? Yo, we messed that up. Let me go and fix it, right? So, um, but the current talent trees, there's three. I don't know much people know about the talent trees for the guilds, but there's three talent trees. One is kind of combat centric. One is for bigger guilds, more members, you get more member
Mm-hmm.
size, and one is crafting and gathering. Now there
Okay.
is some overlap there, and I think that's actually the issue. Currently, if you take the middle tree only, you get
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of extra people, like 170 people,
Okay.
and you get 5% health. Whereas
Oh,
if you take
okay.
the left tree, you get like 20 extra people and 5% power, I think.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, for someone like me, it is an absolute no-brainer to go down the middle tree, right? Get 100
Yeah.
something people in a guild, have 5% extra health, and then if a guild with 50 people declares on me, then okay, cool. We have three times the amount of people that you have. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
that's a good point.
currently, and then for the crafting side,
Mm-hmm.
there is a crafting tree, but in order to go up that tree, you have to either pick a kind of processing focus or a gathering focus instead of craft and in addition to crafting. So in lieu
Oh.
of one or the other. Um, Now, it wouldn't be a big deal if you could get to level 10 in a decent amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
but there is no chance right now for smaller guilds to level. Maybe one level, probably not any more than that. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, I think our sweatiest, most active guild right now, our PvP core, is working on our second level uh,
Dang. Okay.
currently. So it's brutal. I think it only further makes the gap bigger between big orgs and small orgs. I think it's
Sure.
severely limiting for smaller groups. There's no shot that a 15-person guild is going to level. It's just not going to happen. They may,
Yeah.
like I said, once or twice over the course of a month or whatever. But uh, now, that being said, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I, I think that this system isn't designed for us to be level 25 with level 25 mobs that are dropping level 25 amounts of glint either, right? So, um,
That makes
anyway,
sense. That's a good
there's
point.
a lot of ways to go for that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think currently the system disproportionately affects small guilds for sure.
Yeah. Do you think this kind of ties into another question I had? As they, iterate on this and make improvements and I don't know, maybe optimize is the wrong word, but if they get it to a point where there's really clear pros and cons and it's not insurmountable for the smaller guilds to level up, do you think the meta, for lack of a better term, will be large organizations having smaller purpose built guilds to take advantage of, those
Right.
damage buffs or those crafting buffs? Or do you think, because that would kind of skew it in the complete opposite direction, maybe it's the dumbest decision in the world other than convenience to level up and
Right.
just have the most members. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, and maybe even looking ahead,
Yeah.
like how can they make it a true choice?
So I think there has to be, like you said, a distinction between the trees, an obvious flat cut distinction. Um,
Mm,
so if you get more members, you do not get a buff. And if you go to the combat side, you only get buffs. And if you go to the crafting side, you only get crafting and gathering buffs, right?
sure.
I think the overlap is one of the things that kill it. Uh, I think that developers and large over the course of the last 10 years or so consistently do one thing wrong, and it is that they underestimate the sweatiness of gamers.
Oh yeah.
And regardless of the system, large, connected, organized groups are
Yep.
going to game it in their favor, whatever the cost.
100%.
So I think that they can make this easier for small groups,
Mm-hmm.
but I will also say that no matter what, big orgs like ourselves, if they made it so that it is more beneficial to have 50-person uh, guilds that have the buffs for PvP and then have crafting for crafters, that's what we'll do, right? If they made it easier to have 300, then we'll have 300, whatever the
Yeah.
case is. I do think that at least if they did that, it would make it an even playing field for smaller guilds, right? There would
Okay.
be, uh, it'd be 50 versus 50. It would be
Mm-hmm.
your best versus my best type thing. And it would at least be a little bit more of a pain in the ass. And Steven's rebuttal to this, and I'll tell you now, is that there's a lot of things in the game that are not in the game yet that make
Okay.
it harder for Zergs. So just one thing that he brings back a lot is there's no fast travel. So getting from one point to another on the map takes a lot of time for a big organization.
Yep.
Um, so you can kind of game that as a smaller org, but
Mm-hmm.
um, speaking specifically about the guild leveling system, I think that's what'll happen regardless. Right.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And that's one of those things where, you mentioned the response time and stuff like that. I've noticed there's a few things in Ashes like that where on paper, I've been almost trained to like hate like no fast travel, no this.
Right.
I think just like the design, that social sandbox design and all of these systems, it makes all those things go away. Like, it's a little bit of a tangent here, but it sounds dumb. Like I even have fun like traveling from one node to another when I need to go
Right.
do something at the other one. It's like, what? Why am I having fun doing this? And I think it's because I don't feel like I'm on a rush on a treadmill to some end game level
Right.
to then just do the
Right.
two blessed activities, right?
I
It's like,
couldn't agree more. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. I have what I think is in my mind, the most fun question that I save for last of the kind of pseudo crowdsourced ones. What are your thoughts on guild spies? Spies,
Yeah.
spies between organizations.
Right.
Potential counterplay. All that kind of stuff.
So I'm from Fed cut its teeth in kind of sweaty survival games like Ark and Atlas
Okay.
and Albion, all these type of things. So there's a lot of inciting, is what they call it in those games, where people come into the tribe or company or guild
Hmm.
and burn their house down or sink their boats or whatever the case is, and you
Sure.
lose months of work in 5 minutes because you weren't you kind of openly recruited, right? You didn't vet people enough. So
Yeah.
it's toxic, man. I think those games specifically are toxic. Uh, that being said, this is not a sweaty survival game. And I think my leadership core is still stuck, sometimes still stuck in survival game mode, which I understand because spies suck, right? It's kind of one of those things where you're like, what, really? Are we, are we going to spy on people? Are they going to spy on us? But uh,
Yep.
I get it. It's a game that promotes that, right? And I think it's cool.
Hmm.
Um, my take personally for Fed on spies, we have an open net recruiting policy. We
Yep.
like good people. Uh, we like more good people, or we think more good people is a good thing. I know
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be frustrating, but ultimately, in my opinion, and this is maybe might sound cocky, I think that if a spy comes in the Fed within about 15 minutes, they're going to realize that it's a bunch of good people. And if they want to spy and give away a caravan position or something, I'm cool with that. I would rather have
Okay.
more good people.
Okay.
Um, in this game, they can't burn down our house, right? They can't sink our
True.
entire fleet or smash anything that we've done for months.
Yeah. Maybe
So
maybe they can become a citizen and vote against Kyle or something, right? That's
yeah,
what.
right, yeah, and that's absolutely cool. And if they want to pull some long con and get in the Fed and wait for 6 months and then steal my
Yeah.
horse or something in game, you know what? You can have the horse, buddy, right? Like it's just something that uh, my mentality is to be an alpha dog on the server, right? Is to run it, and I'm not gonna sit
Awesome.
here and worry about one or two people coming into Discord that look suspicious.
Yep.
If you
Yeah.
notice, we have our guild meetings are open to the public. So if they want to come in and chat, they're more than welcome to come in and chat, right? They can tell
I
everybody what we're talking about.
Yeah, I was able to make the last one and I noticed that. Like I think someone mentioned it halfway through. I'm like, that's actually pretty cool. Like,
Yeah,
it's like it especially in my mind, that's like an open invitation to haters to like have to,
sure.
it's like hey, we're open, right? Our what
Yep.
we talk about is open, so
We got
yeah,
nothing to
I
hide in Fed, man. It's a
exactly.
pretty chill
Better way
vibe.
to
We do
put it.
things the right way, and yeah, we're here, right? We out here, as the kids say, right?
Yep. Um, so is there anything else that you want to share or shout out in general? Maybe even a message to, those looking for, a guild or a place to play or really anything that you want.
Yeah. First, we have an officer corps of 30 something people, officer and leadership corps, and I'll give them a shout out because they're the ones that make it go. I know I'm the figurehead, so I get the accolades and interviews from YouTube phenoms, but no, they do the work, right? They're on the ground doing the recruiting, doing the interviews, doing the uh, administration, the crafting leads, the running processing and stuff. So it's uh it's a it's an absolute machine with a million cogs. I just happen to be one of them, right? So shout out to them first. Um,
Cool.
Secondly, that is a good place to be, and uh, we try to keep our head on our shoulders, try not to take ourselves too seriously. But our goal every day is to be the best organization on the planet, right? And you know what? Maybe we'll be number two, and I'm cool with that, right? But ultimately, I think you aim for that, and everything else is gravy as long as we're all getting the content we want on our time and escaping reality together. I think it's cool, right?
Heck
So
yeah, man.
yeah, I appreciate you reaching out to me to do this interview. I think it's pretty cool of you. And uh, as we say over in Fed country, man, it's Fed or dead for sure.
Absolutely. I'm definitely bought in. Fed or dead for sure.
That's it, brother.
Flame me in the comments for guild member interviews, guild leader,
That's
LOL.
it, bro. Yeah,
Whatever.
get
I
it.
don't care.
That's right.
Side combos. This is something I just do for fun. Just a little extra nerdery on top of playing the game. So
All right,
hey, same back at you, man. Thank you for taking the time to sit down and chat. Like super fun.
sure.
Really
Anytime, man.
appreciate it. So yeah, having a blast in the game too.
Yeah, good, dude. That's what it's about, man. Appreciate you.